Hello and welcome to Sport for Business. Our leadership interview series has been going down very well, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Cliona O'Leary. She's the Deputy Head of TV Sport in RTE, and as of this week she's Chair of the European Broadcasting Union Committee on Women in Sport as well. Very busy lady, and you're very welcome to Sport for Business, Cliona.
Thanks very much, Rob.
How are you getting on? How are you coping in things the way they are at the moment? I know you got a couple of young kids. How have you found the business of working from home and social distancing and isolation in a media world?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I suppose, like everybody, it's good days and bad days. Especially when you've got children at home. My two girls are 7 and 9, so they need a little bit of supervision when they're doing homeschooling. So look, I got very stressed around the whole area of it initially, and then just decided just to, whatever they can do, and just relax around that side of things. They're very happy, and that's the main thing. And look, we're all healthy as well. So, just I suppose a big part of it is more the moving the whole office and the whole team home has been challenging. We're not used to doing our work from home. We're essential services, so people still have to go and do the job. And we have like a huge slate of archive content to get out. So just trying to set people up to view from home and to edit from home has been a big challenge, because we haven't been operating that way, I suppose, up until now.
Okay, and a lot of the sports news may have dried up, and yet there is still an awful lot of news about sport, because the various different questions to be asked about a return to live action behind closed doors, so many different options. It's been incredibly busy on that. And as a public service broadcaster who is deeply embedded within all of our sports, you would have had a slate of programming across the GAA championships and across all sorts of, from rugby through to the GAA, through to that small matter of the Olympics this year. It leaves a pretty big hole in the programming schedule.
Yeah, like we would have had, I suppose, close to 400 or 500 hours, of output planned for the 6-month period here, between April and September. So, I suppose, one by one, they started to disappear out of the schedule. So it has been a challenge, I suppose, for our channel controller in particular, to seek out other content to put into those slots. And for us in sport, we've been looking back through the archive to see what it is we could put together as well for it. But, we do have an awful lot of content in our archive, but it's not to say that we own that content and that we can reshape it and retransmit it. But in fairness, a lot of the federations have helped us out in that way. And so an awful lot of them have allowed us access to content till the end of May, and then, they will allow it probably for June. And so the IOC particularly and FIFA and UEFA as well have allowed us to put a lot of that content into the schedules there for June and July, where an awful lot of holes are going to appear. So that has been really good. We've got a great team inside there, and they were all very eager, and they love to look back over the previous Olympic Games and European and World Champions, and it is great, for them to be able to do all of that as well. So I think we've got a good plan, and I think our system is kind of coming together. But there's lots of new challenges, I suppose, because we've worked so differently now to how we had done it in the past.
And it is the technical complexity that makes it so easy that we just have to press a button and it just appears as if by magic on the screen. I know I had a couple of friends who were very excited about the fact that Claire in '95 was the first to go into that Thursday slot of the great sporting moments, and very well managed. The Twitter feed going through it as live, there was a genuine sense of excitement. And I'm not even from Clare, but it was a special moment, and probably introducing new generations into events which have been a big part of some of us who've got a few more grey hairs on our heads. But so that technical side of it, was there much of a structure in terms of planning in advance, that you would have known, as you said, that things were gradually being taken away from the schedule, so that you knew? But then, even though as an essential service you were going to be largely working from home, I know that we're all becoming experts in technology, but that's not to broadcast on the national broadcast channels.
No, like the technology side of it, I think is the greatest challenge that we have had. RT was looking to advance in that, but I mean, there's huge costs involved as well of creating a good technological system that can be accessed from, and the security aspects to all of that as well. But like you say, you know, I suppose with the archive plan that we're putting together, it is to look at how you can make it relevant for a younger audience as well, how you can contextualize it. And so we're aiming to do that around a lot of our GA output and a lot of our, themed soccer night programmings that we'll have in June as well. The ambition is that we would, you know, online would do stories around it, and that we would have like Sunday Sport and Game On as well, would contextualize a lot of it for younger people. And then we will look to see what we can do within the program as well to try and make it relevant for everybody, and to try and relive and recreate that whole experience. You know, I mean, particularly say around the Euros and the World Cups, we've got a plan to have like 5 Sundays. So where we will have like 3 to 4 hours of, the first Sunday will be probably the 14th of June, where we'll be looking, which was the date where the championships was to start. And then we'll be able to, you know, we'll do 88 for the first one, then we'll do Italia 90, then we'll do USA 94. And it is to, you know, try and contextualize all of that and try and bring back that emotion and help to relive it for all of us, and for younger people to learn what it was like for us back then as well.
Great. It will look strange. I remember looking in on Croke Park for that 95 one, and a few that TG Cahill have been showing as well. It just looks so odd seeing 70 and 80,000 people cheek by jowl in Croke Park. We've become so used so quickly to the idea of social distancing, but hopefully it won't be so exciting watching 88 and 90 that then we'll be left with a with something of a downfall when it comes back in October or November or December, but hopefully not. I think Stephen Kenny has done a good job, first of all, in terms of getting the excitement levels up. Just moving away from RTE for a couple of moments, you were announced during the week as the new chair of the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union Committee on Women in Sport. We've done lots of stuff together over the last number of years, and I know how passionate you are about equality, just about creating the sense that sport is for everybody, regardless of gender. This is a really good opportunity for you to put that in place on a much bigger scale. Just give us a little sense as to how big the EBU is and how much you hope to achieve out of this role.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Absolutely brilliant that the EBU are so committed to gender equality in sport that they put the committee together. So we came together after the World Cup last June, and so we've been doing some work, but it was only just in the last couple of weeks that I've been appointed in as chair. But like, so we met as a group, and a number of times we presented to all of the sports heads last October at a sports assembly to talk about our ambitions for the Women in Sport Expert Group. We did a big survey as well of all of the members to see, you know, what kind of women's sports are they covering, what is their view on women's sports, their ambitions for, do they think they're doing enough, do they think they could be doing more, how much more, do they feel like they're equipped to be able to increase their coverage, what kind of help would they need. So that's why we're being brought together, is to try and see, we all have different experiences in the group. Åsa Edlund Johansson is the head of SVT in Sweden, where they're at almost equal coverage across the board. They've been working on that since 2015, and with a lot of success. And so I got a lot of help from Åsa back in 2017 when we were looking at it as well, 2018. and she's helped to introduce all of us in RT Sport to be able to see what a measurement system looks like, how we might be able to implement it ourselves within our organisation. And so this is like, we wanted to come together as an advocacy group, and also like that we would be able to share our experiences, good and bad, to help other broadcasters to try and create a path to more equal coverage. And the big plan, I suppose, is that we will create a handbook which all broadcasters can use. So it's not just for EBU members, but it would be for all European broadcasters around what you can do to create more gender equal coverage on screen and also behind the scenes with people working in sport, and then to have case studies from various different organizations around within the European EBU to share those as well. And we look to publish some that looking maybe in September, and then do a workshop for broadcasters off the back of that with all the experienced people within the EBU membership, but also like in consultation with UNESCO and Council of Europe and organizations like that.
Okay, I remember when we had the team from Sweden came over to our Women in Sport conference that you held with us in RTE back in November, and I remember being struck by one of the young researchers who said on a piece of VT that she had thought it would be incredibly difficult, but as soon as she started looking for the narrative and the story and the essence of what would make good media out of women in sport, she said, actually, it's all there. You just need to want to look for it, and then have the capacity and the support to actually put it up there.
Yeah, it's a change of perspective, and it's awareness. An enormous amount of it is awareness, because if you're to ask anybody about what do they want to have gender equal coverage, like nearly everybody will say absolutely, but then it's to go into the detail, and I think that's why it's so critically important to set targets. Whether you go out publicly and you state your targets, or whether you have it amongst yourselves within your department to say, look, let's try and set a target. I think it's really, it's critical, because that's when you do start to interrogate, well, what are we doing? How can we do it differently? And then you realize, all right, okay, like that girl said, it is actually all there. And I think measurement then is really, really important as well, because once you start to measure, you then get an absolute clear picture as to where you stand. And it can be quite shocking when you do look at what you're doing and you look at the figures beside it and you say, like, surely we can do better than this. Why are we not doing better than this? So I think all of those things together, awareness, targets and measurement, I think are absolutely critical for, like, not just media organizations, but every organization to look at.
Yeah, and I think there is a real momentum behind it. The 20 by 20 campaign, which I know actually you've been supporters of as a we. There's a real momentum behind the idea that women in sport should be granted equal respect, I think, as much as anything else. And yet, just when we get that momentum going, this happens and everything comes to a crashing halt. And I'm conscious of the fact that much of the conversation is around the Euro 2020, the men's competition. It's around the Six Nations men's rugby competition. It's the Bundesliga men, it's the SSE Electricity League. A lot of the big team sports are the ones that are capturing everybody's attention. Do you think, is there a danger that the women in sport debate, and it needs to move from a debate into just plain reality, but that this will actually stall that a little bit, because all of a sudden we're scrambling to keep our fingertips on what was always there, and we might not have the capacity to do the right thing. We just need to do the thing.
Yeah, like looking at it from a media perspective, I suppose, and when we started to look at the archive and started to talk and discuss around what are we going to put on over the next couple of months, the fact that we had targets set meant that we were looking at it in a very different way to the way we would have looked at it in maybe 4 or 5 years' time. Certainly before I had an awareness and I recognized my unconscious bias probably would not have thought about the classic series as needing to have women's sport included in them, as we all recognise now. So, like, yeah, I mean, I think that it's really important at the moment to think about like what we're doing and how we're doing it. And we actually have more of an ability now to design our output as editorially as we'd like to see it ourselves than maybe in the past, where where you have live sport and you feel, look, we have to cover all these big events are happening and the calendar is driving our decision making. Well, we're actually driving our own decision making now, and what decisions are we making? And like you mentioned, the 2020 campaign, it was absolutely inspired. It's made an enormous difference, certainly from our perspective inside RTE and media. It really helped to focus us on the ideas of targets, and I think that across the board, I think it has made a big difference. I think it's really, really, I think it's great, and fair play to Sharon, to Sarah and Sharon and Mary and everybody who was involved with the originating of the idea.
It's one of those that time has become elastic almost, but there was always a sort of an unstated concern over, well, what will happen then beyond 2020, because then we will get to that, whereas now Euro 2020 is taking place in 21 and Tokyo 2020 is taking place in 21, so we'll just have to extend the campaign, maybe, who knows.
Yeah, look, I mean, or maybe expand the campaign a little bit as well. I really think that team sports is just one part of it, and we've got such a culture of supporting team sports. Like from when I was young, it was always supporting the men's football team for Cork, and then you start to grow older and you recognise that nobody's supporting your team. You never took any notice as you were growing up. Now, like, you couldn't dream of not supporting the women's football team or the women's soccer team. So, but now I also think that maybe there's an opportunity to expand this campaign a little bit more and look at, if we supported our individual athletes in athletics and swimming and gymnastics and all of those sports that we turn up to support every 4 years in the Olympics and the Paralympics, if we could drive a campaign around awareness and a culture change around going out to the aquatic centre or going over to Morton Stadium or Santry and supporting them, we're doing so incredibly well, our athletes, at world and European level, and I just love that we could try and drive that to get people to support that more, because they're mixed sports and straight away they present equality, and if we could get more exposure for those sports and more support for those sports, with more people attending them and supporting them, I think, and then us in the media, of course, as well, supporting them too, then I think that would be a massive move forward in representation of equal sports.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a tricky balancing act, isn't there? Because we never knew how much, well, we kind of knew, but we never realized how much we love sport and we missed sport and how much an important part of our lives it was until it was gone. Now, when it comes back, and we'll come to that in a moment, when it comes back, there's going to be a real logjam of so many things that will need to happen and will be thrown into the mix on top of us, that we'll probably have to be a bit picky and choosy, because we might have, sort of competing international matches going on, not only week after week, but hour after hour, and we won't be able to get to them all. So it's great that you're conscious of that and that you're aware of that anyway. In terms of the term, your position within the EBU now, how long is that going to run? Or have you persuaded them that they'll only start the clock when the world begins to turn again in sporting terms?
How long will the EBU expert group stay together, is it?
Yeah.
Well, there's no timeline on it. We've come together as a group to try and see how much we can achieve together to try and aid European broadcasters to improve and increase women's sports coverage. We will aim to do the handbook, which will be a substantial piece of work that we will all work on together to deliver like around September that way, and then with the workshop after it. I think then we'll just have to see, you know, how successful that is. You know, I'm sure there'll be loads of maybe consultation or advocacy or work following on from the handbook to aid broadcasters. Like it's not a straight fix. It's not like there's a lot of culture change that needs to go on in organizations to try and change as well. And there's a lot of support. I mean, look, I got a lot of support from Oz. I got a lot of support from you and from lots of people in the sports world in Ireland and in Europe over the last, and RTE has done as well from various broadcasters to help us out. And we'll continue to need those supports and as well. So I think that we'll be there for as long as we need to be there, really together, to try and ensure that people are supported and aided in whatever they want to do.
Until we get the job done.
Yeah.
I've always said that, yeah, we don't want to be talking about women in sport. We just want to be talking about sport. And one day it'll be men, one day it'll be women. Cliona O'Leary, look, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. And even though we may be getting somewhat down about the fact that there won't be any live sport, at least we'll have those Thursday night sessions to cheer us up, and continuing a raid of the archives to bring back the great moments of Irish sport. Sport for Business will continue to produce daily news digest every morning, 9 to 9:30 into your inbox. We're producing more content than we've ever done before, ironically, when there's a lack of sporting action. But it's thanks to you people, good people, taking the time to talk with us and chat with us about something which is of real and material interest. So keep up the good work. And again, thanks, Cliona O'Leary, for taking the time.
Thanks very much, Rob.